Recap: Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao, Chapter 979. Chapter. Beneath the towering halls of the Scarlet Heaven Academy, where countless secrets of heaven and earth lay hidden like sleeping dragons, rows upon rows of ancient shelves stood in solemn silence. Yet these were no ordinary shelves. Invisible restrictions shimmered faintly in the air, forming unseen barriers that guarded every scroll and jade slip within. Should one stretch out a hand toward any technique, the barrier would ripple like disturbed water, and an introduction would emerge, clear and precise, as though whispered by the Tao itself. It would reveal whether the technique was meant for cultivation or battle, its rank within the grand hierarchy, its elemental nature, and every crucial detail a seeker of power would desire. Most importantly, it would state the price, academic credits, the currency of destiny within the academy. Only by possessing enough of these could one dissolve the barrier, access the knowledge within, and be granted 10 full days to comprehend its mysteries. 10 days, a fleeting moment in the long river of an immortal's life. Yet if one required more time, they would have to pay again, though the cost would mercifully be halved. Such a system left no room for complacency. It forced every cultivator to treasure time, to squeeze every breath, every heartbeat, into relentless pursuit of understanding. For though immortals could live for hundreds of thousands, even millions of years, those who had reached this realm understood a cruel truth. No matter how long one lived, it was never enough to reach the peak. Ling Han stood quietly among the shelves, his gaze calm yet sharp, reading through one introduction after another. He did not act rashly. Before choosing a path, he would first understand the terrain. Some techniques were surprisingly affordable, costing only a few dozen academic credits, mere scraps, easily within reach. But others, his eyes paused. Black Thunder Ground River Secrets, 5,000 academic credits. Ling Han nearly choked on the number. Who could possibly afford such a thing? Yet as his thoughts settled, reason returned. An ordinary student might remain within the low extreme division for over 5,000 years. Spread across such a span, perhaps the price was not so outrageous after all. And this was not even the peak. There were techniques priced beyond 10,000 credits, heaven-defying inheritances that stood far above the rest. In the immortal realm, cultivation techniques were divided into 10 levels. Level 1 stood at the bottom, while level 10 reigned supreme. The 7-star secrets he had once cultivated were merely level 1. Even if perfected, they could only carry him to the consummate stage of the mountain river tier. No further. Here, within these sacred halls, the highest techniques available reached level 4. And beyond that, existed even greater legacies. Ling Han recalled Shui Yanyu's words, the moon-shattering secrets of the Shui clan, a level 5 technique. Yet even she, bold and unrestrained as she was, would never dare pass it to him. To do so would invite death upon them both. For to any clan or sect, a cultivation technique was not merely knowledge. It was their lifeblood, their foundation, their eternal inheritance. It was never to be shared lightly. Ling Han exhaled slowly, shaking his head as a bitter smile crept across his face. This one is good. That one is also good. But all of them are absurdly expensive. At first, he had believed his 1,000 academic credits would allow him to spend freely, perhaps even indulge himself. But now, he felt like a beggar wandering through a palace of treasures. Still, his mind remained steady. I will first redeem a lower-level technique, break through to the medium extreme, and then slowly accumulate credits for something greater. The path was clear, yet he did not act immediately. Instead, he turned and descended the stairs. As he approached the exit, something unexpected occurred. Old Man Shu opened his eyes. Young man, the old voice called, calm yet carrying an undeniable weight, walk with this old man. Ling Han was momentarily stunned. This mysterious elder had taken the initiative to invite him? Suppressing his surprise, Ling Han bowed respectfully. Please, senior. Old Man Shu rose slowly, his movements unhurried, as though he existed outside the flow of time itself. Without another word, he began walking. Ling Han followed behind, posture straight, demeanor humble. The academy stretched endlessly around them, vast forests, tranquil gardens, and winding paths weaving through a world that felt both serene and immeasurable. At last, They arrived at the edge of a great lake. Sunlight danced upon the surface, scattering into countless golden reflections, writhing like 1,000 shimmering serpents. Old Man Shu turned, a faint smile resting on his lips. "I have heard of your performance in the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm." His eyes gleamed. "Very good." Ling Han lowered his head slightly. "Thank you for your praise, Senior." The old man chuckled, stroking his beard. "Have you chosen a cultivation technique?" Ling Han sighed lightly, shaking his head. "To be honest, Senior, I have found several suitable techniques." He paused. "But I lack the means to redeem any of them." Old Man Shu nodded, as though this was expected. "I have a cultivation technique," he said slowly, "that I can teach you." Ling Han's eyes flickered. "However, you must agree to one condition." "What condition?" Ling Han asked, his tone steady. Old Man Shu's gaze sharpened. "If, in the future, you encounter the highest jade essence heart, you must retrieve it for me, at any cost." In that instant, the world seemed to tremble. Within the old man's eyes, suns, moons, and stars ignited, swirling in a vast and boundless cosmos. His aura surged like a tidal wave, pressing down upon the heavens themselves. Gone was the frail elder. In his place stood a figure of overwhelming dominance, a being whose presence alone could command the world. Were it not for his white hair and aged face, one would think him a peerless warrior in his prime. Ling Han was momentarily speechless. "What is the highest jade essence heart?" he asked. Old Man Shu's aura receded just as swiftly, like a tide withdrawing from shore. "If you encounter it, you will know." He waved his hand dismissively. "Your cultivation is too low. Thinking about it now is meaningless." Ling Han inwardly grumbled. "So blunt. Does Senior not fear wounding my pride?" Aloud, he asked. "Does Senior not worry that I may not do my utmost?" After all, the condition was subtle. He was only required to try his best if he encountered it, not to actively search for it. The difference was vast. Old Man Shu laughed heartily. "If that were the case, then I would have misjudged you." Ling Han nodded firmly. "Then please, Senior, teach me." The old man's expression softened. "This technique is called the Universal 8 Desolation Technique." Ling Han's heart stirred at the name alone. Universal 8 Desolations. It carried the weight of supremacy, as though it sought to encompass all under heaven. "But," Old Man Shu continued, "what I possess is incomplete. You may cultivate it only to the consummate level of the heavenly body tier. As for what lies beyond," he shook his head, "that will depend on you." Ling Han did not hesitate. "May I ask, what grade is this technique?" Old Man Shu fell silent for a moment. Then he shook his head. "I do not know. But I can tell you this. In terms of speed of cultivation and the purity and strength of the origin power it produces, it will not be inferior to any technique on the Joint Peace Planet." Ling Han's breath stilled. Not inferior to any technique? That meant even those of the 3 great majestic empires. Old Man Shu flicked his wrist, producing a jade slip, which he tossed toward Ling Han. "The technique is recorded here. Study it yourself. If you have questions, you may come to me." Ling Han received it with both hands, his expression solemn. "Thank you, Senior." This was no small favor. If what the old man claimed was true, then this technique alone could ignite a storm across the entire planet. Countless factions would tear each other apart just to obtain it. For while treasures like Mountain River stones could nurture individuals, a supreme cultivation technique could elevate an entire lineage for generations. Ling Han made no grand vows aloud, but within his heart, a silent promise took root. If he ever discovered the whereabouts of the highest jade essence heart, he would do everything in his power to obtain it. Soon after, Ling Han moved into new accommodations. As a student of the low extreme division, he could no longer remain among those of the shattering void tier. Yet he made no announcements, no visits, no farewells. The moment he settled into his new residence, he entered seclusion. Before him lay 2 paths to refine. First, the cultivation of the Universal 8 Desolation Technique. Second, the advancement of his body art to the immortal level. And as he closed himself off from the world did not remain still. Outside, ripples began to spread. Tang Feng, proud and unyielding, publicly issued a challenge. Now that both stood within the low extreme division of the Northern Institution, their battle would be one of equals. Yet there was something unbecoming about it. Tang Feng held the first rank. To challenge Ling Han, who stood below him, seemed unnecessary. But Ling Han's fame had already spread like wildfire. Defeating him would bring glory. It would prove one's strength before all. And more importantly, if Tang Feng did not defeat him, whispers would begin. Was his position truly deserved, or merely an empty title? At the same time, another name rose, Zhao Lun. He had broken through to the consummate stage of the mountain river tier. Rumor spoke of an ancient technique he had mastered, one of terrifying power. The Empress herself bestowed upon him the rank of a 7th-rank military officer. His name was engraved upon the nation's totem. Through it, he could draw upon the power of the entire country. In an instant, his reputation surged, like a blazing sun rising above the horizon. It overshadowed Ling Han completely, and within his silent seclusion, Ling Han remained unaware, or perhaps he simply did not care. For the path he walked was never meant to be measured by the eyes of others. In the vast imperial capital, where ambition flowed like an unseen current beneath every street and palace wall, a storm of anticipation had quietly taken root. All eyes were fixed upon a single question. When would Ling Han rise high enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with Zhao Lun? The name Zhao Lun was no ordinary one. He was a legend carved into the memories of an entire generation. And now, a new star had begun to blaze across the heavens, daring to challenge that legacy. The people waited. The gamblers moved first. Beneath the surface of the city, in shadowed halls where fortunes were made and lost in a single breath, underground casinos erupted with wagers. The question was no longer if Ling Han would face Zhao Lun, but when. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, 100 years. The shorter the time, the higher the stakes. Those who dared to believe in a rapid rise placed their bets with trembling hands, chasing impossible odds. Others, more cautious, wagered on decades or even centuries. Even if the outcome would take lifetimes to unfold, it did not matter, because this was the birth of a legend. Within the Luo clan residence, however, there was no excitement, only a suffocating chill. Luo Hongdao sat at the head of the hall, his face dark as storm clouds, his expression twisted with fury barely contained. For the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm, the Luo clan had paid an unimaginable price, sacrificing wealth, influence, and countless hidden resources, just to secure 4 entry slots. 4. And yet, none had returned, not a single one. Worse still, the Crimson Ground locking net, their treasured god tool, had vanished along with them. The cost of obtaining entry into the realm was nothing compared to the price of forging that divine artifact. Though it could only suppress cultivators within the mountain river tier, such tools were rare beyond measure. The Luo clan had bled for it, paid with both treasure and vitality. And now, it was gone. Luo Hongdao's hand slammed down upon the table with a thunderous crack. "What is going on here?" he roared, his voice shaking the hall. 4 of them entered. They carried the Crimson Ground locking net. How could it be that none returned alive? Before him, Luo Qing bowed slightly, his expression solemn. As a pillar of the Luo clan, his cultivation had reached the low extreme of the Sun Moon tier, yet even he felt the weight of this disaster. In reply to Lord Patriarch, Luo Qing said carefully, "There were witnesses?" Ling Han was also seen within the flame cave. The moment that name was spoken, Luo Hongdao's gaze froze. Ling Han. That name had become like a thorn lodged deep within his mind, impossible to ignore, impossible to forget. A cold snort escaped his lips. "You are telling me," he said slowly, each word laced with disdain, "that a mere ant from a small world killed Luo Jian and the others?" Luo Qing did not retreat. "Lord Patriarch, Ling Han is a 4-star genius," he replied honestly. With the assistance of mountain river stones, his cultivation has already reached the late stage, perhaps even the peak of the low extreme. His battle strength cannot be underestimated. But Luo Hongdao shook his head. Impossible. His voice was absolute. Luo Jian and the others carried the Crimson Ground locking net. It suppresses its target by a minor level. Even if that brat has some talent, what could he possibly do? At best, his battle strength would reach the peak of the low extreme. His eyes narrowed. How could he defeat them? Luo Qing fell silent. Because the logic was undeniable, Luo Xiang, the leader among them, already stood at the peak of the low extreme. His combat strength even exceeded 4 stars. With the Crimson Ground locking net in play, any opponent should have been crushed without resistance. Unless the god tool had failed. But that was simply impossible. A moment passed before Luo Qing spoke again. "There is another matter," he said. "News has arrived from the Dark Knight Hall. Their first assassination attempt on Ling Han has failed. Now that his cultivation has risen, they demand a higher price to continue the mission." "Pah!" The teacup in Luo Hongdao's hand shattered as it struck the ground. "That bunch of trash!" he spat, fury blazing. They couldn't even kill a shattering void tier cultivator and allowed him to run rampant for this long, and now they dare to raise the price. Luo Qing lowered his voice. "Should we withdraw the request?" Luo Hongdao did not answer immediately. Instead, he leaned back slightly, his expression dark as he calculated. After a long moment, he asked, "How much?" Luo Qing hesitated, then answered, 100,000. For a brief instant, it seemed as if Luo Hongdao might leap to his feet. "Are they robbers?" he roared. "He is nothing more than a lowly mountain river tier cultivator. No background, no support, and they dare quote such a price?" It was not that the Luo clan lacked the wealth, but to spend such an amount on someone at the low extreme of the mountain river tier, it felt like madness. "That brat has already reached Crimson Lake Island 3 times, Luo Qing explained. "He is rising like a blazing star. Naturally, the price of his assassination rises with his reputation." Luo Hongdao understood. Of course he did. That was precisely why it enraged him. After a long silence, he finally spoke. "Agree to it." His voice was cold. "We cannot allow any trace of involvement in his death." "Yes," Luo Qing replied, bowing his head. "The cost was high. But if the Luo clan acted personally and were exposed, the consequences would be far worse. Killing a rising genius could bring light punishment, or total annihilation. Better to let shadows do the work." Far from the schemes of the Luo clan, within the quiet sanctuary of cultivation, Ling Han walked a different path. The Universal 8 Desolation technique was no ordinary method. It was vast, profound, difficult beyond reason. Even with Ling Han's exceptional comprehension, it took him 7 full days to fully grasp the first level. 7 days of total immersion. 7 days of unraveling mysteries hidden within heaven and earth. Only then did he abandon the 7-star secrets, allowing the origin power within his body to flow anew. Guided by this ancient and powerful technique, this method could draw upon 6 different elemental spiritual energies simultaneously. The result? An origin power far more condensed, far more refined. But refinement came at a cost. When Ling Han switched techniques, his cultivation level actually declined, because everything had to be reforged. Like iron melted down and tempered into steel, the impurities were burned away. The volume decreased, but the strength increased beyond comparison. 10 days passed. Only then did he return to his original cultivation level. Yet now, his battle strength had already surpassed what it once was. Satisfied, Ling Han did not linger. He turned his focus to body art. From within his storage, he brought forth spiritual meat. This was no ordinary nourishment. Its effects far surpassed true origin stones, and he possessed several kilograms of it, an amount that, if sold, would fetch thousands of true origin stones. Yet no one would sell such a treasure, because immortal-level demonic beasts were becoming increasingly rare, and spiritual meat was priceless. There were no elaborate preparations, no fire, no seasoning. Ling Han simply ate. And the moment the meat touched his tongue, his eyes lit up. It was as though he were tasting the finest delicacies raised within the Black Tower itself. Rich, pure, and overflowing with vitality. No wonder it was considered one of the greatest delicacies of the immortal realm. Yet the yield was pitiful. A mountain river tier demonic beast would only produce between 50 to 200 grams. Scarcity defined its value. Ling Han entered a cycle. Eat, cultivate, eat again. Cultivate once more. Time flowed silently. A full month passed, and at last, his body art broke through. He stepped into the immortal level. Throughout this period, he had not neglected his origin power. Step by step, he refined it further, until he stood firmly at the true peak of the low extreme. But Ling Han was not one to settle. His ambition burned fiercely. He would not stop here. He would push forward. In one single breath, he began cultivating the 2nd level of the Universal 8 Desolation technique. Half a month passed before he fully mastered it. Then, he acted. Large quantities of true origin stones were brought forth. Their energy surged like a raging tide as he launched an all-out assault against the barrier before him. For ordinary geniuses of the Scarlet Heaven Academy, this step would take 5,000 years. 5,000 years of accumulation, 5,000 years of refinement. But Ling Han had another path. With the aid of mountain river stones, he bypassed the slow process of accumulation. Then, using the universal 8 desolation technique, he reforged his origin power, stabilizing his foundation with unmatched precision. His progress defied reason. Even Zhao Lun would have to acknowledge his superiority in this aspect. At last, the moment came. He began his breakthrough. Though it was merely a minor level, the transformation it brought was immense. In the immortal realm, each step was like crossing a vast chasm. This breakthrough would reshape everything. His physique would grow stronger, his vitality would deepen, and most directly, his lifespan would double from 100,000 years to 200,000. Yet even Ling Han could not defy all rules. Without mountain river stones to construct his inner world, he could only proceed step by step. Time passed. 4 months, 4 long months of relentless cultivation, until finally, within his dantian, a second great mountain formed. The moment it solidified, Ling Han's eyes snapped open. He did not hesitate. He exited the Black Tower immediately. For the past half year, he had remained within it, the safest refuge in existence. But now, the heavens had taken notice. Kwang! Thunder roared. Dark clouds surged across the sky, dense and oppressive. Within their depths, lightning flickered like coiled dragons awakening. The heavenly tribulation had arrived. Ling Han shot forward, his figure cutting through the air as he descended upon the Academy's designated tribulation plaza. He stood tall, unyielding, ready. Before he could even steady his breath, the first bolt of lightning descended.